And so first of all, I really enjoyed the documentary.
I'm glad to hear it.
What was your idea about getting all your pals basically together and talk about the love of horror?
Yeah, basically, I started meeting these people in a trailer that I was working on for a friend, Mike Mendez. He was doing a promo trailer, and I started meeting someone there, and then I met James Wan there. Next thing I know, he cast me in Insidious, which was a big cult hit. And from then on, it just rolled over into more and more meetings, more and more directors wanted to work with me. And then I was having lunch with my co-producer, Hank Braxton, one day and said, you know what, I'm thinking of doing a documentary, just interviewing some people, and I'll just like do it on my phone or something just to see what happens. He goes, you know what, why don't I get some cameras? Because he works for a production company. And I said, okay. He goes, yeah, and like I lighting equipment and we can use the studio where I work. And I go, okay. And he goes, and my wife can produce it. I said, okay. So that's basically how it started steamrolling. And I just started calling people up. And I called Mike first because I thought that was the right thing to do since he's basically my gateway into the horror crowd. And he said, sure. And I started calling more people. And they all wanted to do it. And that's how it happened.
But it's a very, very friendly film. It's one that you very easily get drawn into, and it's like hanging about with your mates in the pub at the end of it. So
good.
Because they talk about things that everybody who loves horror can relate to.
Mm-hmm. So, horror, sci-fi, fantasy too, because it goes across the board. You got people like Russell Mulcahy, who of course directed Highlander, Resident Evil, Extinction. Those are more sci-fi, although Resident Evil has zombies in it. And fantasy stuff. So it's a lot of across the board. But it would be too unwieldy to call it the horror, sci-fi, fantasy crowd. Yeah. So I called it the horror crowd. But it does cover across the board. So if you like sci-fi, fantasy, there's stuff in here for you.
Absolutely. But what was your earliest intro into horror when you were growing up?
I remember distinctly, growing up in New York City and watching the old Creature Features TV show, which they would show Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, the originals.
Yeah, the Universal ones, yeah.
It just scared the hell out of me. I was like a little kid, but it was great and engrossing as can be. And then as I got older, I started watching, the sci-fis, the aliens and those kind of things, and to modern day,
Yeah. So you've directed 2 shorts yourself before this.
I did direct 2 shorts. One was called Head, which Ariel Brockfeld, my producer on Horror Crowd, was the lead, along with Matt Mercer, a well-known horror actor. The 2 of them were in that. And then Hank Braxton produced that. And I did another little short, which I shot, which my daughter played the lead in. And those are my testing the waters, so to speak. And that's when I decided to meet with Hank and say, I want to do a feature documentary. What do you think? And then that's how we did it.
Because a lot of people will recognize you from stuff like Insidious and Big Ass Spider. And
Big Ass Spider. That's a funny film. That's Mike Mendez's film.
Yeah, it's a great film.
Very and Greg Grunberg and Claire Kramer and Lynn Shay are all great in it. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, and you managed to get them into the documentary as well, so that's fantastic.
Oh yeah, and they were happy to do it. So many revelations of all 3 of them. So many great things. And Lynn was just a delight, to speak. I mean, I knew her already, obviously, from Insidious, but just a delight to just kind of probe and get little things. And she got her little puppy. She's got a little puppy, stroking a puppy during the interview, which is adorable.
Quite a few dogs in the film, actually.
Actually, you're right. Shaked Berenson, also interviewed, had his 2 puppies with him, and then we spoke to them, and I made faces with them and things like that. So that was fun.
But what's the scariest film you've seen
in my life?
Yeah, go on.
I got to go with Alien. That's why I dedicated a whole section to Alien in the film, and then we have Charles De La Zarica talking about it, and he's an expert in Alien because he's done all behind-the-scenes featurettes for Ridley Scott, produced and directed them, and then we got into very specifics about that. And then Cyrus Voris, a good friend of mine, was a screenwriter. He wrote Demon Knight. He also loved aliens, and we all talked about how it was so scary because it was like regular people in space, like truck drivers, blue-collar truck drivers, as we say in the documentary. who are just out there, and all of a sudden they run into this giant monster alien thing.
Yeah.
And I saw this in the theater. I was like, it was terrifying. As Charlie and Cyrus, which was not planned, they both say, I watched it like this, you know, with my eyes covered, and I cracked up. I had to put that together, edit, overlap those two because it was so hilarious that they both did that.
It's like a haunted house film in space, isn't it?
That's exactly what I say. It's a haunted house in space, because you never know when that alien is going to pop up. And of course, a lot of people know that Ridley Scott didn't tell the actors when it would be popping up, especially Tom Skerritt in that hallway, those tube scenes.
Yeah.
When the thing comes out of nowhere, he didn't know when it was coming or where it was coming from. And that's why it's so effective. And of course,
The chest burster.
Chest bursting. They didn't know what was going to happen there. And all of a sudden, John Hurt's chest explodes. So yeah, that's probably the one, to answer your question, that's probably the one that scared me the most, because it most affected me in the theater when I saw it. It was unbelievable. So it's...
Other than in the film, I mean, it goes into it a lot, but for the people who haven't seen it yet, explain a little bit about your horror scene, you know, where you live.
The horror scene, you mean the people in it, the crowd?
Yeah.
Basically, like I said, I met them all through that promotional video trailer that Mike was doing. Started meeting them all there. But then the Jump Cut Cafe, which has a whole segment, which I'm sure you saw with the horror trivia, that's a big deal for us. Yeah, we would meet every single month and do horror trivia, like super detailed horror trivia, like the license plate number and Friday the 13th. You know, people come and think, oh, I know who the killer of Friday the 13th was. Also, no, we want the license plate number of the vehicle. And they're like, what? So that was our, as we say in the horror crowd, that was our club. We used to meet there, and, you know, we'd eat sandwiches, have coffee, and, you know, macaroni and cheese and all that, do trivia, watch preview screenings of movies and shorts and sci-fi shorts nights. It was just an incredible meeting ground. And people like Wes Craven, people like that, and many others would just pop in and just have a coffee, have a sandwich, and you never knew who you were going to find there. So it was a...
So why did that shut down?
Say again?
Why did that shut down?
I think it was, I mean, we never say, hey, why'd you shut down? But it had to be, the rent was so high. It was Studio City, which is a very shishi area, of course, you know, Los Angeles, right on Ventura Boulevard, no less, right there. So the rent had to be astronomical. And even though every time I went there, there was people all over the place in there, it just, you can't even imagine what the bills must have been like there. So they went a good 3 years, which is not bad, you know, but they finally had to shut down. As clubhouses sometimes do.
It's a shame, isn't it? The film's going to be on at FrightFest, but it's very different this year.
I'm very happy about that. And the people there have all been fantastic, corresponding back and forth, answering any questions. They're both all very excited about it. They've seen many of the people in the documentary at FrightFest because they've gone, you know, have gone there over the years with their projects. So they loved having it all together in one film. You know? I didn't plan that. I didn't know that a lot of them have been to FrightFest, but I just said, hey, let's see what happens. And sure enough, they took it.
Yeah, it's a shame that it's a virtual festival this year, because it would be perfect to see in a crowd, because it's basically what it is.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct about that. And obviously, it would have been great. I would have flown there for sure to meet them all and be at the festival for Q&As and so forth and panels. But, we'll make the best of it. Hopefully enough people will see it and distributors will see it, and we'll get distribution and so forth. And, and then I've also got it, submitted to, not accepted yet, into several festivals in 2021. And let's hope that things are okay and we can do a theater for those, but we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah. And what's the end goal for the film? Is it?
Distribution, obviously.
Yeah.
Distribution, but I want it to be seen. That's why, I want it in a lot of festivals. I want that average person to just look at it and say, wow, this is cool. Let me go follow them on Instagram and Facebook. And one of the reviewers who reviewed the film already, and he gave me some quotes, I'm not obviously going to post a whole review, said that he loved it so much that he saw it again with his daughter, with his youngest daughter. And she was a big horror fan. She goes, oh yeah, I remember Ruben. She recognized me from, I guess, Big Ass Spider or Insidious or something. I don't know what. I thought that was so touching that he would love it so much he would show his daughter the next day. I mean, that was just, that really touched me.
brings up that community spirit after you've seen it. And
absolutely.
I mean, I was smiling most of the way through it. So,
oh, I love it. I love it. That's great. That's great to hear.
You know, it's great. It's the sort of film I can imagine sitting well on Shudder, you know, because they do some of these documentary things.
Sure. Shudder. I mean, whatever it's into, if it gets into Netflix or Amazon, you know, whatever distributors, you know, can arrange.
What's next for you after this?
For me, I'm spending most of my time promoting, I mean, daily, like 8 hours a day, seriously, promoting the horror crowd, pitching it to other festivals, and trying to get that festival play going, even for next year, as I mentioned. So that takes up most of my time. But during quarantine, I did shoot a horror short. You know, I didn't want to stay home and, you know, do nothing, twiddling my thumbs. So I just went and shot this horror short, and I love it, the footage. And I'm going to start editing that as soon as things calm down, probably right after FrightFest, editing that short and submitting it to festivals, including FrightFest. So that will be it. Now, I'm also an actor, as you probably know. So as you definitely know, because you said so. I can't wait for things to open up in New York and LA, because I'm bi-coastal now. And then start going out for features and TV shows and stuff, which I was doing a lot of before the bomb hit, you know. So as soon as things open up in New York and LA, I'll be going back and forth, getting into projects. Yeah.
So how do you feel the industry's going to cope post-COVID? So it's a bit up in the air.
Definitely during COVID, it's not doing very well. They're doing a lot of pre-production. You know, my wife's in the industry also, and she's told me that, you know, things are, you know, ramping up. And I just read that Dwayne Johnson is already going to start working on this. I think it's a Netflix thing, is restarting shooting, or just did this week. So slowly but surely they are starting up again. I would imagine once, I hope, they find the vaccine and so forth, or just all dies down, that it'll be back to normal. I guess it could be affected where it'll be a lot more online stuff. I obviously, it's up in the air. Who knows?
It's terrible at the moment, because everything is being announced and then being put back, and you just don't know where you are. So
exactly, yeah.
All right. Before I leave you, what advice would you give a young filmmaker looking to get into horror, or even just any cinema?
Never, ever give up. And that's the truth of the matter. I mean it so sincerely. There are too many people, I've seen too many talented specifically actors, which I dealt with in the early part of my career, who were super talented. These guys are great. I love working with them. And little by little, they start dropping out and, you know, leaving the business because they weren't getting enough, because this and that. And I said to myself, but way back then, I'm never giving up. There'll be high times and low times, and, you know, times when you're like booking right and left, you know, TV shows or movies or commercials or anything, and times when you don't do something for a couple of months. So you just can't let it affect you. And I understand that sometimes you get a family, you get kids and the whole thing. I get it. You got to pay the bills. But if you can find some way to wangle that around where, you know, you can do something else too, maybe at home, you know, whatever, to pay the bills until the next job comes along. I've been lucky, though. I got to tell you the truth, that I've consistently, you know, booked things, either TV, film, or commercials. And commercials obviously can be very lucrative because residuals and all that, as TV and film have too. But I would say never, ever give up would be my advice.
Excellent. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Or?
No, I'm just very excited about the horror crowd, especially being at FrightFest and the other festivals that are going to come out. I'll be announcing a few other festivals that's been accepted into already, but I'm holding off on that announcement until they officially announce. And hope everybody can come and see it, or can tune in and see it at FrightFest, because I mean, it was made with a lot of heart and love, and I'm just not saying that to promote it. It really was. These people came in, you know, they were all busy too. Some of these people like super busy all the time, and they came in and spoke about themselves and their horror love and their families and their lives, and it just, as you say, it comes across. It's a very heartwarming film, but it has some, you know, scary things in it, you know, things going on. So I think not only horror fans, horror sci-fi fantasy fans will like, I think the average person will like it, because it's not just, oh, look at these bloody, you know, killings and heads getting chopped off. And it's not about that. It's about the horror crowd, the people in it, how they grew up. As Mike Mendez says, I saw my first horror movie, The Hills Have Eyes, at age 3. I mean, that was a shock and a revelation. I did not know that. And that's how some of these people get affected. You know, Charlie with the Alien, Charles de Lazarica. So yes, it affects, I think it will be liked by the average person too.
I think so.
It's
Well,
great to hear.
thank you very much, Ruben.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm glad you liked it.
I did, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Hopefully.
Thanks very much.
Some of us are just born with it.
I've always, as a filmmaker, been kind of drawn to the weird.
We have a rich tradition of horror.
I've been acting a long time.
I never thought even for a second that I'll ever work in the film industry.
My parents didn't know what to make of it. They didn't know what to make of me.
Biggest horror geeks and minds together in one room.
These great salons where filmmakers would be.
From A-listers to D-listers.
Kissing my pants. So I'm thinking I'm about to meet fucking James Bond. And
Cool community that keeps calling you back.
The horror crowd helps each other out.
Which is something very unique for that community.
you gotta have laughs, you gotta have humor.
It's weird saying that when you try to kill people.
I will say wacky shit.
I didn't know, any idiot can buy a video camera and make a movie. I'm like, I can be that idiot.
We don't know what the afterlife has in store. And I think there's something that really attracts me to that.